Well, welcome to the Purple Inspiration Podcast, Rising Above the Noise. I'm Judy Lloyd, your host. This podcast is about building consensus, meeting in the center to solve problems. And in this space, you will meet community leaders who are exceptional and learn what makes them extraordinary. And I have with me today a business leader who is extraordinary, who I have gotten to know through the Relaunch program, Jennifer Frye. Jennifer has been focused on business development her entire career. Her company is focused on being intentional about your business growth. She is the visionary behind Appreciated Asset Business Solutions, the premier partner for industry disruptors who are looking to build and fill their sales pipelines. She's on a mission to create financial independence for women, particularly single mothers and military spouses, and you'll get to hear her story soon. She lives in Charleston, South Carolina with her son and loves to show other women, specifically single moms, how to redefine having it all. Welcome, Jennifer. So, Jennifer, what's the first thing a woman should know about your business? How did Appreciated Asset begin, and what do people need to know about it?
So we have a concierge level done for you equipment setting service. We work really differently than any other lead generation out there. My business was born from necessity because I left a very toxic employer and was looking to build a career as a salesperson without an actual product to sell. So when COVID hit, a couple years into my business, I had to move from a fractional role because that was keeping me out of the house. And now I was homeschooling a kindergarten student at the time. He's now in middle school. And I needed to find a way to create revenue for my business where I could also work from home because I didn't have childcare. So I had always been amazing at sales, but for the first time, I couldn't be customer facing. So I had clients give me lists of who they wanted to meet with, and I would start setting appointments. And I did that for about 6 months on my own before we grew so fast that I needed to start bringing in employees to help with the collie delivery.
Well, that's a nice problem to have, having to hire employees and wonderful. So you talk a little bit about a relationship that caused financial pain. You had the power to get out. In fact, I read your interview in Forbes magazine, and you encouraged other women to face the truth, forgive themselves, access support, and speak to a family law attorney who understands your rights. That takes real courage. Tell us about how that has shaped your life and how that has kind of spilled over into what you're doing in business.
Yeah, I think that I'll never have to wonder, did I do everything that I could in the marriage that I had? But I think that when you are faced with a really toxic situation and someone who is taking advantage of you financially, it's one of the forms of abuse that are really the most underreported things because I think there is so much shame around it. And someone thinks, well, it's not physical and he's not calling me names. Though that was also happening. I think with financial abuse, you have to get to a point where you just realize that someone who would treat you in that way is never someone who's worthy of your time or your commitments. And I think this is something I talk about quite often. I think it's essential that every woman, whether she needs to or not, have the ability to take care of herself and her children financially, independently of anyone else. Hopefully you don't need to do that, but it is absolutely critical that you have the ability to do so. I think that the fact that I had that ability allowed me to get out of my marriage, right? I was able to stay in my home. I was able to keep my son at the private school he was at. We were able to still maintain a quality of life. Actually, it was improved because I didn't have anyone squandering my money anymore. But because I was able to do that, I was able to exit a really unsafe situation that I had been escalating.
Well, like I said, it takes courage. Absolutely. And it seems to me like you're helping other women who've been in similar situations. You focus on single women, military spouses. What motivated you to do that? And talk to me specifically about single women and military spouses, because, two really, really important parts of our economy. and especially support network with the military wise. So I'm really curious about that. So talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm on a mission to help other women create financial independence for themselves. I can talk about it all I want, but I really want to utilize my business as a way to create that sort of impact. And so, what we are doing at Appreciated Asset is we are growing our team with single mothers and military spouses, um, because I believe that these are two segments of the population that are grossly underemployed, undervalued, and we have the ability to give them careers where they can grow, where they can develop their skills, and where they can create that financial independence. And there's two different ways that we do that. So first is with the single moms, and that I started with because that was near and dear to my heart. As a single mom myself, I really wanted to give that opportunity to other women. I wanted to change the narrative about the struggle of the single mother. It doesn't have to be a woman who's working morning to night and working three jobs and completely abandoning herself to provide for her kids. You can have really fulfilling, wonderful careers on the other side of a divorce or separation. And with the military spouses, this is something that happened really organically. We hired a young woman who was a military spouse. And through learning about her and her story, she was in a wonderful marriage. But when her husband would be moved to a different location, a different base, she would have to start a job search all over again. And she kind of had to take what she was given. Um, she was treated in every new location like she was uh, kind of disposable, right? What was happening is that they would say, well, you're not going to be around in 1 or 2 years. So what's the point? With us, as long as they have internet connection and access and a willingness to get to work, then they're ideal for us. And that's, how we've built that side of the business out too. And we love supporting those tools.
Well, and they're probably very grateful to have that opportunity because, I mean, I think about just moving my home and it's such a traumatic experience. I think about doing that every few years. So I'm really, really happy that you're doing that. Definitely the military spouses stick together. So you probably got a community of them who know one another and want to help. So that's admirable and wonderful. So I appreciate that. So I wanna shift gears here. So, we talk about psychographics and demographics and political campaigns, which I've been involved with, and it's the difference between where you live, what's your job title. So, what's your lifestyle? How do you live? What values do you have? Like I said, we do this in politics all the time. People don't even realize they're being profiled, but they're being profiled every day by political campaigns. So tell us about what you do there and what kind of, what why are you a leader in that space? What do you give us your tip if you have a tip for people?
So what you're referring to is when we help our clients identify their ICP, their ideal client profile. We look at their ideal demographics, right? Those are the basics. Those are the checked boxes: location, industry, decision maker, revenue, team size. There's all kinds of different demographics that we know to search for. But psychographics are the things that create values alignment, like-minded, like-heartedness, chemistry on a call. If you've ever had a sales call with someone and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to work with you. Why aren't we working together already? This is amazing. It's so easy. That is typically where you have an aligned psychographic. So we look for things past the demographics that would create that sort of interaction for our clients. Sometimes that is a business that is mission-based and those missions alone, right? When we speak to other businesses that support single mothers or military families, we have an aligned psychographic. We are very much working towards the same goal of supporting the same types of communities. We may be a psychographic like the the part of the country you're in, or someone who say they take Fridays off and they want to work with other businesses who have, different sorts of calendars because you don't have to have the 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. By the way, you don't. So it might be something like that. Someone else who's willing to think outside the box. Disruptors. That's a big psychographic for us. Businesses that are disrupting status quo. There's no checked box for if you're a disruptor now, by the way. But it's just a way of being, or it's a way of creating culture in your business that allows for innovation beyond, again, checking that box.
I always thought of myself as a disruptor.
You are.
Some of that had to do with my career. I was the first woman to be the Western Regional Rep for the Secretary of Labor, and people didn't know what to do with me when I got there. I had a very old, I should say old, that's not really fair, but a seasoned group of men who I was working around. And they said to me, well, we've never had anybody as young as you who has children. And it was completely, foreign to them to think about workplace flexibility, completely foreign to them to think about, oh, I won't go into my office, but I'm still working probably harder than if I was commuting 2 hours a day. And it was a very different philosophy. So I'm a big believer in disruption. Well, let's pivot right now to, we're about building consensus, right? How do you build consensus? I mean, your sales pipeline, you must have to be building consensus all the time with every client that you speak to.
Yeah. So I think a big way that we do that is through AI, intent-based listening. We have the ability to be able to see who's actively looking for you by service. The thing is that consensus means you need buy-in. You need messaging that's compelling. Yes, but messaging that resonates, right? Again, if you've been on a sales call and someone says, oh, I was just thinking about this. You were just talking about this. Yes, this is exactly what we need. That is messaging that is resonant. That is how you gain consensus. But what we have the ability to do through the magic of AI is identify where we find that consensus in advance of the call. We've never been able to do this in the history of sales in this way. And it's absolute magic because now, if we know 2% of your ICP is actively in the market through service, that's kind of a rule of thumb across the board. It may be up or down a little bit, but let's say 2%. Now, instead of calling through 100 people to find the 2 for that consensus, we now can eliminate the other 98. So now we'll get to them when they get into a part of their search where they're showing interest. But for now, we eliminate that 98%. And we are just focusing on that 2% that are aware that there's a problem. They're aware they need a solution. They're aware that a search is necessary of some sort. And we help bring the solution in front of them.
So explain the concept of an ICP. And for sales professionals, you all probably know what that means. But what about for other people?
An ICP is your ideal client profile. And you can look at that 2 different ways. So for an ideal client profile, it can look like an avatar, someone that you've never worked with, but if you could be in front of this kind of person, this kind of business, this industry, this vertical, that you can serve them. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is your favorite client, right? The person that you wish you could clone 50 times over. That's another way to identify your ICP. Usually it's somewhere in between those 2. That's what we usually come to.
Well, it seems to me like, my ICP would be somebody who, loves to talk about public policy and politics, loves drinking red wine and white wine too, and loves going to country western shows. And, that to me, a lot of the people you meet in life who connect with them because there's something that you have in common. I mean, I know you have a boy, I have a boy. My boy's behind me here. He's now 28, but boy, I appreciate what you did to raise your son from, being small and homeschooling and everything that you've had to do. So, so let's talk about that motherhood. I know that you're very devoted and you've just done an amazing job. How does that make you feel compared to other moms that you maybe encounter that might maybe they're married, maybe they're divorced, but you've kind of figured out how to do it all. How do you have your business? You have your son. Everyone seems like you got a great life there in Charleston.
Well, first of all, I stopped the comparison game a really long time ago because you don't really know what's going on behind someone's, behind closed doors in someone's life. So I think for women, especially, we really rob ourselves from joy by comparing ourselves to others. Seeing the highlight reels on social media and seeing what someone wants to show you at a cocktail party is not necessarily what comes up for them. Um, Finding a group of women that are willing to be vulnerable and real, and uh, and that's not everyone you meet, and that shouldn't be everyone. But being able to surround yourself with people who are true and real, um, and again, like show you that vulnerability, so they're willing to let you see that things aren't perfect, is really important. And it's also a safe space for you to share. Um, with my son, it's about being present. But when we are present together, it's the best. And sometimes that's watching Is It Kate? We love that show. Sometimes it's traveling. Sometimes it's just going out to eat. Um, I play Roblox with him because he loves when I play Roblox with him. So it's really just about doing things that he loves to do, things that we love to do together, um, separate from homework because no one loves that, right? But you can get so in the routine, right? You get so in the routine and so in like the day to day that it doesn't feel like you're doing one, but you can find that time to connect. I love talking to him on the way to school. I take him to school every morning. I pick him up most days. Um, but I love talking to him on the way to school because it is uninterrupted time.
Right.
So even though we're not looking face to face, most you can even say things to each other that are a little more difficult if we weren't making eye contact. You're still in this space together. You got some.
Well, and I think, quite frankly, being present, I read this thing. Now, I have to tell you this. I have to give her for a second. I read a post on LinkedIn and it talked about authenticity, but it talked about authenticity in a completely different way because it wasn't about really being authentic. It was about the fake authenticity that you show in your online presence. Like, oh, everything is perfect for me. Yay, everything is wonderful. And when you do that, you're actually showing a side of you that doesn't seem true. It seems too good to be true. And so then that makes people kind of think of you differently. So I've appreciated you. You've always been very, very direct, very authentic. I love what your business does. So Jennifer, just to kind of close out here, how do people get in touch with you?
So you can reach us. Our website is appreciatedasset.com. You can find us on all the socials. We're on LinkedIn mostly, but we're on Facebook as well. Or you can just reach out and, set a time to speak with us. We've got some contact links on the website. We'd love to meet, and just ideate about what's possible with a really intentional growth strategy for your business.
Well, you are delightful and one of the best people that I've ever met. We met at the Relaunch Conference, Relaunch to a Rich Life, and you were featured there, which I was really, really happy about. Are you planning to go this year? It's called Relaunch to a Rich Life. It's in September and it's in Scottsdale, Arizona, one of the most consequential women's conference I've ever been to. Are you planning to be there?
I will be there. I would not miss it. It was same for me. The most influential room I've ever been a part of with the most high caliber women. I can't wait to be back. The energy was incredible, but it continued, right? That's the most important thing is it didn't just end when the conference ended. So, yes, I will be there. Please join us. It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely. So, Relaunch to a Rich Life. Look it up online. Run by Hillary DeCesar, my good friend. Be there or be square, I would say. Jennifer Frye, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. You are a rock star. I can't wait to see you again soon.
Yeah, me too.